Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from Sort of Interesting, and this is going to be a quick video looking at the pros and cons of boat life. Now, I've held off this video for a long time and I've had a lot of requests for one of these videos, and the reason I haven't done one before is because I've thought, well, if I do a pros and cons video, it's going to be extremely biased to the pro side. But finally, the other week I realised when I had another question about doing one of these videos that I should be doing these videos for people who are thinking about moving onto a boat and not already, like me, on a boat and necessarily living the lifestyle that I do. So I thought, well, hopefully I'll be able to give you a few insights into boat life and sum up some things that may or may not tie into what you would or wouldn't want living on a boat or in a house. So I suppose, as I've managed to film this once again perfectly while there's a boat just about to go past, we shall have a quick look at that and then get down to business. And right on cue, like I say. Always the way, trying to film on the canal. If I point the camera through the window here and say that this is just where I happen to be mooring up at the minute to film this video, you can get the general gist of, well, first of all, the biggest pro for me personally, being able to see stuff like this through all of your windows. And I mean, this isn't a particularly perfect day. I mean, it looks nice and blue sky, but it's very windy and it's not very warm, we'll say. But like I say, if that's what you've got as your views, then that's obviously a very good positive to me. Anyway, the scenery isn't just good scenery. It's basically the embodiment and visual demonstration of what, to me personally, my boat life is all about. And that is the outdoors. Being able to moor up in any given spot that's at least as perfect as what I'm looking through out the window right now. And well, I'll show you a few clips of places I've moored up in the last couple of weeks now. Well, fair play if you've got swans and this. Just have a look at that through the window. If we can let the camera focus in there. Just absolutely beautiful. Well, you get the general gist of it. Being able to be out travelling up and down hundreds of miles if you really want to do some travelling of canal that looks like that. And that's the view that you have out of your window, out of your back door, first thing in the morning, last thing at night. And what that means in terms of being able to go walking and biking and having perfect middle of nowhere rural dark skies for astronomy. I mean, those are three of my biggest hobbies that I've done for years, long before I ever imagined the narrowboat. And obviously, to me, the boat, being able to change the route of your bike ride or go on a different walk every day if you wanted through different scenery, that's just absolutely amazing. At the minute, we've got another boat going past. So apologies, it's a day boat and I don't think they know about reversing to let the leaves off the propeller, because that sounds like it's really putting a little bit of effort in to go very slow there. So if I keep my balance here. Anyway, as we let that go past. So to me personally, being able to be out in this proper active middle of nowhere outdoors lifestyle is what boating's all about to me. But obviously there's people who have their boats have a much bigger sort of super boat compared to Tilly, that they moor up in a marina and live there quite happily 10 months of the year, and their life is completely different. It's almost as if they live in a very small house that's also very long. But ultimately that's the options and the sort of flexibility of boat life. And the general gist of being able to be in a marina, you'll have obviously all of your water and electricity and any services that you could want, and also it's still on a boat that if you wanted one day you could just tootle out of the entry to the marina and go on a 3-day cruise if you wanted. The other huge benefit there is to living on a boat is the fact that it can almost cost as little as you want it to. I mean, Tilly here cost me 11 grand to buy, so bought that outright, and then general year by year living costs are absolutely minimal. I have to pay about £560 a year on a boat licence, £100 insurance, and, well, those are the only things that you have to have. I mean, things like water you get for free along the side of the canal from taps, and that's sort of covered in the boat licence, I suppose. And then other services, I mean, electricity runs off the engine, which runs on diesel. You have red diesel to a certain percentage, so that'll cost you less anyway. It doesn't really use much diesel when you're travelling along at about 4 miles an hour, so diesel lasts forever. In fact, it took about, I think it was 15 months for me to wear down a full tank of fuel on here, and that you're talking about probably being £180 worth in 15 months. So obviously then, if you're not travelling much, I mean, if you're in a marina, then you're probably going to be using very little diesel indeed, and maybe topping up every few years, never mind once a year. So that's another way that costs are very low. Things like gas for the cooker and stuff like that as well, because it all has to be bottle based. Those you buy as you go along, and once your bottle's empty, I mean, I have room to store 2 on here, so I've always got a spare one. So fill up a bottle, empty a bottle rather, plug the other one in, and then about 25 quid for a 13 kilogram bottle that I'm using. And those, I mean, over the winter months now, we've got to good old autumn, which is why I was saying about the leaves on the propeller. Now we're in proper cold months. I do a lot of cooking on the fire, which is all wood that I've picked up off the floor and cut myself, and maybe an £8 bag of coal a month, if that. And, well, once again, that's all keeping the costs as low as they possibly can be. Every 2 years, or for me personally, I black the hull every 2 years, which costs about £550 as well. So even if you wanted to split the cost of that between 2 years, you're probably still looking at, I don't know, £560 for a boat licence on a little boat like Tilly. I mean, that can, if you're looking at a boat that's much bigger, be well over £1,000 a year. So make sure you do your research and don't quote me on just based on this little 30-foot boat here. But obviously that's 560, 660 including 100 for insurance, and then, like I say, blacking every 2 years. Call that 550 for a little boat like Tilly. Once again, could be over £1,000 for a big boat. And even if you split that to a yearly cost, I mean, you're still struggling to hit £1,000. And ultimately, on top of that, you're only adding what you would normally have. Things like food and any sort of entertainment, anything that you would basically associate with a house, but without any of the monthly bills or quarterly bills for water and electricity and gas and that sort of thing. So the costs and the lifestyle are my 2 biggest things. If we come outside for a random little change of scenery in the video, and once again, like I say, when this is the sort of view that you can have on almost all of the canal, and you'll have seen those clips of when I was down by Blakemere and you're looking across a lake literally 30 foot away from your boat. I mean, well, there's not much you can argue with. But I suppose I've got to come up with some negative points, as once again, I've started this video and it has just been incredibly, overwhelmingly positive. And, well, to me, like I say, there's no real negatives, but really what I think most people would find if you're coming from a house to be sort of the awkward thing is general space and facilities. I mean, as you can see here, Tilly is only 30 foot. So if we pop up here, you can see we've got about 15 foot of indoor space. You've got about 5 foot of storage that's under cover in the front. And then, because I haven't got a cover on the back, this enormous stern here is about 10 foot of space that only really stores my bike and a load of wood when I am cutting and collecting for the winter, which at the minute it's all cut and stored under the front. But, like I say, ultimately, if you're used to having all the things in the world in a nice big house, then trying to come down to even a 50-foot boat where you'd have a lot more indoor space than Tilly here, you would probably find it quite the wrench, especially if you've been living in a house for quite a while, because the possessions that you do seem to somehow inherently acquire over time is, well, in many ways terrible, but also quite unbelievable in quantity. So I can see how storage could be a very big issue to people, and personally it's not a problem for me because I don't really have much stuff, basically. I mean, now that I'm a child in a digital age and all that, I've got an iPad and an iPhone, and that's all areas of entertainment covered. And then basically I just have a load of notebooks to write in and, well, general clothes and food. There's not really much. You can check out my video where I give you a proper in-depth look at all of the cupboards and everything. Search for small liverboard storage video. And, well, like I say, you'll see what I've got, and then you can compare that to the sort of things that you might want. I mean, if you want a nice big telly on board and, I don't know, a load of DVDs and a load of books, then obviously you've got to find walls that aren't covering up windows and aren't going to make it too narrow to walk through if you are trying to put a lot of stuff from a house into a boat. I'm also very lucky, and this is where some people might say I'm a cheat, that I also am lucky enough that my mother, there's a workboat going past. That's a rarity. I was very overexcited to see that then. And, well, like I say, we've got all sorts going on today while I'm filming. Yes, anyway, sorry, I'm quite distracted by it. So, like I say, you've got the storage element, and what I do have is the benefit that my mum's house, where I used to live before buying Tilly, is about 2 minutes away from where I work. So I always obviously bike in and out to work and leave my bike and that at her house. So over the past sort of year, while I've been trying to figure out the storage setup on Tilly, and I've been pulling parts out of the front and the back, and everything's basically been settling down to make Tilly my home. I've had the advantage of being able to take things back off the boat to my old room and filling that up with junk, and then fetching it back once I've decided what I do want. And I mean, now I pretty much don't have anything really apart from a load of books in the house back in Oswestry. But ultimately, having that as a storage thing temporarily over the first couple of months of moving on to Tilly was a huge advantage, to be able to really live in Tilly in different states with different furniture and different layouts, and not know that, right, if I'm going to take this off the boat, then it means I've got nowhere to put it and I've got to sell it. So once it's gone, that's it, it's never coming back. And that's something that I've definitely been very lucky to be able to experiment and try with all the time in the world to figure out what I do and don't want. I'd just like to apologise if my voice is a bit croaky. I've got a little bit of a cold, so just thought I'd throw that in now at this random break in the video, and go on to say that general facilities, if you know what I mean, like, obviously water and toilets are your biggest sort of, I don't know, expendable resource, I suppose we'll put it in a nice way. Now, if you're in a marina, then it's not going to be a problem, because you should have facilities to empty whatever type of toilet you've got on board and refill from a water tap nearby, or at least you would hope so. And if you're out cruising as well, then you'll be passing toilet and water facilities quite regularly. But in some cases, I mean, for example, because I'm not in a marina at the moment, you can see my videos about life in a marina as well if you search for Narrowboat Marina Life, something like that. But now that the winter's coming, you can imagine some of the awful weather that we're getting, and it's just, oh my goodness me. It makes for some fun cruising times, I can tell you, when you've got rain hammering and wind blowing you across the canal and all that sort of excitement. And so over the winter months you can have winter mooring, which I'll get into the rules in another video because that's all changed. But basically now it's going to be very wet, it's going to be cold, there's potential for snow and freezing canals. So over the winter, personally, I'd stop cruising and then pick one spot, and that's my winter mooring spot that you have to pay for. And like I say, I'll get into that in another video. But that means obviously then, to empty the toilets to get water, I have to do very specific cruises to those locations. And if you're sort of running out of water, or if you're, I mean, on here I've got 2 portable toilets, so those last me a good few weeks before I have to start panicking and trying to find somewhere to empty. And water also lasts for weeks on end just for me personally using it. So those aren't a big worry. But like I say, over the winter months, where I'm not cruising up and down and going off to Whitchurch and up towards Llangollen and all that sort of stuff, then I'm not specifically going to be going past these places to just think, we'll just pop in and empty, or we'll just fill up with a bit more water while we're here. So that means that I'm potentially going to have some very, very cold, very wet, and, well, very long trips ahead. And it's that sort of thing again, that it's just a general sort of planning that you have to think a couple of weeks in advance of, right, we'll hope for some good weather this week, and one of these days we'll go down to Ellesmere facilities, or we'll go up to Chirk Marina, or basically all these different elements of what boat life can be. And like I say, some people are like, oh, cruising, what's that all about? Haven't got to worry about that. And they're sat with their electric heaters going on in here while I'm trying to light the fire, and they'll be there with, I don't know, central heating and their telly's blaring, all plugged into a shoreline in a nice cosy marina. And like I say, I'm trying to do this as a pros and cons video about boat life, but I can't seem to quite nail the cons, because like I say, to me, every sort of negative point that comes up, you can say, well, you could live in a marina for most of the time if you wanted, or, well, there's endless sort of options, because your boat is obviously a movable floating home. You're not stuck, like, I mean, for example, where I am now, I'm a few miles from Chirk, I'm a few miles from Ellesmere, probably a good few hours cruising in either direction. But it's not really a big problem to me, because I love just tootling up and down. I mean, if I go up to Chirk Marina now, I get to go over Chirk Aqueduct and then through the enormous Chirk Tunnel. I mean, that's what you can do as a normal part of your daily life if you want. Maybe not daily, but that's what boat life can be if you want it. And if you like that sort of thing, which luckily I do, then obviously it's fantastic. If you don't, and if you're not bothered, then like I say, because I'm trying to do this pros and cons, the temptation is for me to say, well, you can just live in a marina and not have to deal with it, but still have a relatively low cost. I mean, obviously you then add a monthly marina cost in as well, but that's still nowhere near as high as what even just the monthly bills if you were trying to rent or buy a place would be. And that's really why I have such a problem saying this is good, this is bad, living on a boat is great, living on a boat is awful, and all that sort of stuff. It never is as black and white as that. And there's pros and cons, but it all depends on your view and how your general attitude towards life and general attitude towards the great outdoors is, I suppose. Ultimately though, I suppose it really does come down to the individual person. And if we come outside for one last look, and well, like I say, you've got all this and you're still wearing your slippers. Can't be bad. I suppose I'll say, as we watch that holiday boat disappear around the corner, thank you very much for watching. I hope that's given you something to think about. I know it's not a very good pro and con sort of practical guide to can you live on a boat and will it suit you, but hopefully it's give you some sort of light shed on the subject. And well, ultimately I'll say thank you very much for watching. Make sure you check out my book about living on a boat called The Narrowboat Lad. You can get it £1.53 for the Kindle and Kindle apps, so make sure you check that out. And well, have a fantastic day, like the Facebook page, subscribe for a load more boat stuff, and until the next time, well, just enjoy yourself and hopefully get a little bit more of this weather. Farewell.